War isn't always about soldiers or generals. The stories we hear most often are about the ones on the front lines, the ones whose names fill history books and whose faces are carved in stone. But the true fabric of war is woven by many hands, most of them unseen. Sometimes the greatest battles are fought by ordinary people. People like a baker, a school teacher, or a farm girl. These are the people who keep life going when the world is falling apart, who find strength in the everyday, and who risk everything for the sake of their loved ones. Their bravery is quiet, often unseen, but it changes everything. They don't march in parades or command armies, but their actions ripple through time, shaping the world in ways we rarely notice. These unsung heroes don't get medals or statues. Their sacrifices are remembered only in family stories, or sometimes not at all. Yet, their impact is lasting. Their courage is simple, protecting home and family with whatever they have. Whether it's a loaf of bread, a comforting word, or a safe place to hide, their acts of kindness and defiance are their legacy. History is full of these stories, of people who stood up when everyone else hid. They are the backbone of resistance, the quiet force that refuses to be broken, even in the darkest times. Heroism isn't about being fearless. It's about doing the right thing, even when you're scared. It's about facing danger with trembling hands, but standing your ground anyway. We imagine heroes as larger than life, but often, they're just regular folks in extraordinary situations. They are neighbors, friends, and family members who rise to the occasion when fate demands it. This is the story of one such person, a farm girl with no weapons, just hay, old clothes, and a clever mind. She had no training, no uniform, but she had courage and determination. She saw a threat coming for her home and decided to act. She refused to let fear dictate her choices, even when the odds seemed impossible. She wasn't a soldier, but she fought a battle. Her battlefield was her own backyard, her weapons were her wits and her will. She wasn't a general, but she devised a plan that fooled a seasoned enemy. Her strategy was born from necessity, her courage from love. Her story reminds us, sometimes your best weapon is your wits. In the face of overwhelming odds, it's the mind and the heart that can turn the tide. This is her story. And it starts in a quiet village, far from the front lines, where the echoes of war are distant, but the courage is just as real. Her name was Annalise. She was the kind of girl who seemed to carry the weight of her world in her eyes, even at a young age. At 17, she was already strong from years of farm work, her hands calloused and her back straight from long days in the fields. She lived in a small French village, nestled between rolling hills and endless rows of crops. Life was simple, planting seeds in the spring, tending the gardens through summer, and harvesting the fruits of their labor in the crisp autumn air. Each season brought its own rhythm, its own quiet joys and challenges. But in 1943, the distant thunder of warplanes shattered that peace. The world outside their village crept in, bringing fear and uncertainty. German soldiers arrived, their boots heavy on the village roads. Fear became part of daily life, settling over the village like a thick fog. Annalise watched her parents grow weary, their faces lined with worry and sleepless nights. Laughter faded from their home, replaced by hushed conversations and anxious glances. She learned to be quiet, to listen for danger, and to be strong in ways she had never imagined before. Every creak of the floorboards, every distant shout, made her heart race. Yet she knew every path through the fields, every tree that marked the edge of their land, every sign that something was amiss. The countryside was her map and her refuge. To the occupiers, this was just another patch of conquered territory, but to Annalise, it was her whole world, her childhood, her family, her future. Despite the fear, the farm's rhythm continued, milking cows before dawn, feeding chickens in the chilly morning air. Each chore was a quiet act of defiance, a way of saying, "We endure. We are still here," the work seemed to say. The land responded to their care, even as the world outside grew more dangerous. Annalise found strength in these daily tasks. They kept her grounded, giving her purpose as the world spun into chaos and uncertainty. Her connection to the land became her greatest weapon, a source of courage and resilience that no soldier could take away. She was more than a farm girl, she was a guardian of her home, standing watch over everything she loved. The war would soon test her in ways she never imagined, but Annalise was ready to face whatever came, her spirit unbroken. She had grit, determination, and a deep, unwavering love for her home and family. And when the time came, she would act, not out of anger, but out of hope and necessity. Not with force, but with ingenuity, courage, and the quiet strength that had always defined her. This is how her story truly begins, a story of resilience, hope, and the unbreakable bond between a girl and her land. One crisp autumn morning, the village's uneasy peace was shattered. Fear became reality when a neighbor, breathless and pale, brought urgent news. A German scout platoon was sweeping the area, moving closer with every hour. These soldiers weren't just passing through on patrol. They were methodically searching for hidden resistance fighters, allied pilots, or anyone who might be helping them. Their presence meant suspicion, and suspicion meant danger for everyone. Where Wehrmacht scouts went, destruction often followed in their wake. The memory of other villages left in ruins haunted every villager's mind. If they found even a hint of evidence, the entire village would pay the price. Homes set ablaze, men rounded up and taken away, secrets exposed to the enemy. The arrival of 42 German scouts, boots pounding the earth and trucks rumbling, threatened to shatter the village's fragile silence and sense of safety. Anneliese watched from behind a curtain as soldiers fanned out, searching a neighboring farm. They overturned haystacks, poked at loose floorboards, and peered into every shadow, relentless in their hunt for hidden spaces. Her family had hidden precious food beneath the barn floor, hoping it would go unnoticed. Every creak of the boards made her heart pound. Worse still, the old hunter's cabin deep in the woods was more than just a relic. It was a resistance safe house, a lifeline for those fleeing the enemy. If the scouts discovered the truth, everyone connected to the resistance would be doomed. The fear was suffocating, and hope felt distant. The scouts were moving steadily toward her family's farm. Less than an hour away now, their approach inevitable. Panic crept in, tightening its grip. Running or hiding might not be enough this time. The stakes had never been higher. Anneliese gazed out at her home, the golden fields and the dark woods beyond, searching for answers in the familiar landscape. She knew she needed a plan, something bold, something clever, to turn the soldiers away and protect everything she loved. She couldn't fight them with force, but maybe, just maybe, she could outsmart them. The fate of her family and her village depended on it. Her mind raced, desperate for a solution. The clock was ticking, and every second brought the enemy closer. She had to act. Now, before it was too late. As the soldiers drew closer, a wild idea sparked in Anneliese's mind. She couldn't fight, but maybe she could fool them, with a decoy. What if she made the scouts believe a resistance camp was hidden on the far side of the valley? If they took the bait, they'd abandon their search of the farms. It was a huge gamble, but it was all she had. She ran to the barn, grabbing old grain sacks, a shovel, rope, worn shirts, and a tattered blanket. Each item would help tell a story the soldiers would believe. She needed to create signs of a hasty escape, the kind soldiers would recognize. Her heart pounded, but her hands were steady. She gathered her supplies and hurried toward the woods. The soldiers were getting closer every minute. The safety of her family and village depended on her. There was no turning back. Anneliese raced to a clearing on a ridge, visible to the soldiers, but distant enough to hide the details. She dug a shallow fire pit, arranged stones, and placed charred logs and fresh shavings inside. A smoldering ember sent a wisp of smoke into the air. She tore shirts and blankets into strips, tying them to branches to mimic a hasty escape. She scuffed the ground, making overlapping footprints leading deeper into the woods. Grain sacks filled with dirt became fake supplies. She rigged a rope to drop a sack, leaving chaos and frayed rope behind. An old tin cup by the fire, a shallow trench nearby, details to sell the illusion. Every move was deliberate, building a story of a resistance group fleeing in panic. Anneliese worked quickly, her knowledge of the land guiding her. She wasn't just a farm girl now, she was a set designer, and the forest was her stage. The decoy was ready, now she needed to bring it to life. To truly sell the deception, Anneliese needed movement. She grabbed twine, hid in the bushes overlooking her decoy camp, and tied the twine to a branch. As the German platoon approached, she tugged the twine, making the bush shake. The soldiers froze, binoculars raised. She tugged again, more movement, more suspicion. She'd also propped a coat on a stick at the tree line, attached to another twine. After shaking the bush, she pulled the coat down, as if a sentry had ducked for cover. From a distance, it looked like a lookout warning his comrades. The illusion was complete. Her ghost army had come to life. The German officer saw everything: smoke, abandoned supplies, movement, a disappearing sentry. He barked orders. The search of the farms was abandoned. The scouts reformed, now focused on the Decoy camp. Anneliese watched as they moved away from the village, down into the valley, toward her trap. Relief washed over her, but she stayed hidden. The soldiers advanced cautiously, expecting an ambush. They found only dirt-filled sacks, torn rags, and footprints leading nowhere. The sentry was just a coat on a stick. Anneliese had led them on a wild goose chase. The village was safe, for now. She waited until the soldiers disappeared into the trees. Her plan had worked. She had outsmarted an entire platoon, all with nothing but farm tools and her wits. By the time the officer realized he'd been tricked, it was too late. The scouts were miles from the village, their search derailed and daylight wasted. Humiliated, the officer chose not to return. Better to report the partisans had escaped than admit he'd been fooled. The platoon moved on, away from the farms. Anneliese watched until their uniforms vanished into the forest. The threat was gone. The village was safe. She crept home, saying nothing. Her success was in the quiet fields and the absence of soldiers. Her father's food was safe. The resistance cabin remained a secret. No one was arrested. No homes were burned. 42 enemy scouts had been turned away by one girl's quick thinking. She had protected her family, her neighbors, and the fragile network of resistance. It was a victory won without a single shot. Her courage had saved them all. Anneliese's story proves you don't need a uniform to be a hero. Courage is acting in the face of fear, using whatever you have. For Anneliese, it was a shovel, rope, and old shirts, tools of her daily life. She saw possibilities where others saw junk. This kind of heroism is everywhere. In small acts, in quiet moments. It doesn't come with medals, but it holds the world together. Anneliese never received recognition. She simply went on with her life. But her story reminds us, we all have hidden strength. We all have the capacity for extraordinary courage. It's not about waiting for the perfect moment, it's about acting with what you have. One person, one clever idea, can change everything. True strength is intelligence, resourcefulness, and the will to protect what you love. Anyone can be a hero. All it takes is a little dirt under your fingernails and a good plan.